You look at yourself in the mirror and you hate what you see. So you start starving yourself to get the perfect body. Unfortunately, this is what many people do who have an eating disorder. Others eat excessively and then force themselves to be sick. It's a big problem that really needs to be addressed. My guests tonight on the Chrissy B Show are Grace Bowman, a former anorexic and author of Thin, and Emily Gilmour, clinical director of the Recover Clinic. If you want to get in touch at any point during the show to share your views, or if you're maybe worried about a family member that you think is not well, is not eating enough, you can email on chris@chrissybshow.tv, and you can also call on 020-7686-6300. There'll be someone inside to take your messages, your calls, and your messages can be passed on later on as well. And of course, later on, we have Lisa Marie to share her fashion tips and Flavia Leal to speak about her weekly makeup tip. But before we go to our guests, let's take a look at some celebs who've had eating disorders, because this is something that can affect absolutely anyone. So the first one, you all know this lady, is Lady Gaga. Now, she spoke about her struggles with bulimia at the beginning of her career in Vanity Fair magazine. We also have American Idol judge Paula Abdul, who, as you know, she's a dancer, singer and a choreographer. And she also battled bulimia and checked herself into a clinic in 1994. Now, one very worrying one is Demi Lovato. Now, she's obviously a 19-year-old singer. And last month, I think it was a Daily Mail that reported on this. She says, when I was 4 years old, I remember looking in the mirror and thinking I was fat. I was constantly feeling guilty about my weight. Then at just 12 years old, she started to lose lots and lots of weight. I mean, how on earth can a 4-year-old think that she's fat and be worrying about her weight at such a young age? It's really, really disturbing. So I'd like to actually speak to someone that went through it now, and that's our first guest, which is Grace. Good evening, Grace. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So obviously there's a lot of celebrities that have been through this, but you understand it firsthand because you've obviously been through it yourself. Can you tell us a bit about it and how it all started for you?
Yeah, well, for me, it wasn't as young as 4. I was actually about 18. Mm-hmm. I was at school, quite happily going along, preparing for my A-levels, and had a good circle of friends and a supportive family. But one day, just looked in the mirror and decided that I wasn't happy with the weight that I put on. And that was probably a perfectly normal thing to happen to me at that time, because I was growing up into a woman.
But had you never had any concerns about your weight before then?
Never, ever.
Wow.
And actually, when I'd had friends who were voicing concerns about their weight when we were younger, I had absolutely no understanding of what they were talking about. I literally couldn't understand a single thing they were saying, because I'd just eaten whatever I was given, and had never really thought about it, wore whatever I fancied, and wasn't particularly a sporty person, so never really thought much about my body. So it did strike me quite suddenly, looking in the mirror and thinking, I've put on some weight and I don't like it. And I remember actually saying to my mum, I feel fat and I want to do something about it. And she said, oh, don't be silly, aren't you funny? And I wasn't fat by any stretch of the imagination, but I probably had changed and got a more womanly body. And that's really where it started for me.
So you think it's like you didn't want to really grow up, maybe?
Yeah, there was definitely something around that. I mean, I think it was more that I was just worried about a lot of small things, but you know when things add up and they build up inside of you. So I was worried about doing well in my exams at school. I was worried about going away to university. I was worried about being popular and having the right kind of friends and keeping my boyfriend. I mean, these are all totally normal things that every teenager goes through.
But it is very stressful. I mean, I think sometimes parents underestimate how stressful it is for someone that is going to start, because it's a whole new life, a whole new set of friends, pressures. It's really, it's quite serious.
And sometimes you think your children are dealing with things maybe when they're not. And I think I'd always tried to be the responsible grown-up, eldest of 4, always responsible and in charge of everybody, never any problems, always did well at school. And so to admit that I had worries made me feel like a bit of a failure. And obviously, I didn't really know all of that was going on at the time. It was that was all happening under the surface. What I knew was happening was, oh, I've put on some weight. Let me do something about that, and that'll make me feel better about myself, because something just doesn't feel right.
Do you remember what size you were at the time?
Oh gosh, maybe a 10 or a 12, or I was just a normal
Perfectly
girl.
Normal weight,
totally normal girl. And no one around me would have ever made a comment about my weight. It was nothing. Any external thing had indicated to me that I had a problem. It was just something I decided, and So yeah, I started. I went on a diet, and it was just cutting out a few foods like chocolates and sweets. And when I did that, I felt better about myself. I felt like I was controlling things. And so a couple of weeks went on and I cut something else out, and then I cut something else out. And this kind of just carried on. And I always say that with a diet, there's usually a finish point. So you lose a bit of weight and you say, okay, now I've got to kind of keep it off. But with me, I kept stepping on the scales more and more and more and wanting the numbers to go down. And I got fixated with this, that if the numbers were going up, that everything was going to spiral out of control and I would be helpless and everything would go wrong.
Did you realise at this point that it was actually getting a bit obsessive, this kind of weighing yourself all the time? Or did you think, oh, this is fine, it's normal? Did it cross your mind at all?
I don't think it clicked for a while, for a number of months. I think what I was more aware of was that along with cutting down what I was eating and weighing less, I was starting to feel like I didn't want to socialise anymore. I was starting to become very quiet. And I had a group of 4 other friends, and we were all kind of in a little gang together. And I was always in the corner, kind of quietly retreating and not wanting to go out drinking or having fun or being young. I just sort of didn't feel myself. And that's what really started to appear more obviously to everyone else, actually.
Rather than the weight loss itself.
Yeah, the weight loss people noticed and commented upon, and actually some people said I looked nice.
Gosh.
and maybe at the beginning, you know, it seemed like a healthy, regular, normal thing to do, but actually...
And that must have encouraged you to do it more.
I think, yeah, exactly, when someone gives you a compliment, you think, oh, right, well, I'm achieving something else here, and... I was always concerned about achieving something in my life and showing people that I was good and making myself feel popular. And so, yeah, if people gave me those comments, I started to feel that that's the route I should be taking. And then it just carried on.
How much weight did you lose?
Probably, well, I suppose before I was diagnosed with anorexia, which happened within about 6 months of me actually starting to diet. So it was a very rapid, it was a very rapid process.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I think when I was taken to the doctor, it was probably I'd lost a couple of stone or near to a couple of stone.
And obviously, size 10 or 12 already. That's a significant weight loss.
Yes, it was. Yeah, and when I went to the doctors, that's when those words were mentioned, and that's when things were taken out of my hands, because I was literally about a week away from starting university, and I was told that I couldn't go, and I had to stay at home and concentrate on getting better.
What weight did you get to?
I think in that time it probably got worse, and it was under 6 stone.
Under 6 stone.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I think we've actually got a photo of you when you at your thinness. Let's have a look. Do you have that photo? Okay. So you weighed about less than. And 6 stone, okay. And how did your family cope with that? Because that must have been really scary, because as you said, it was quite a very short time period.
Dramatic, and they felt really helpless. They didn't really know what to do. Obviously, they took me to the doctor when they realised things were really getting out of hand, and they kind of confronted me with it.
How did you, when they talked to you about it, were you like, okay, I need help, or were you like, no, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me, don't worry? What was your reaction?
I think I probably fell a little bit silent, but in that silence, quite a lot was said, really. And I think I knew something was wrong, and I knew that I wasn't happy. My friends had tried to say stuff to me before, but I became very defensive and I was very shut down. And to be fair, when you're 17 or 18, having something that's potentially this big happening to a friend of yours, I don't think anyone really knows what to say or how to react. They just tried to carry on being my friend, and I think that's probably the best thing they could have done, rather than trying to direct me to eat more at that time. I just needed somebody to kind of be a support. So yeah, my parents and my friends were all, it was a terrible time for them. It was really, really horrible, and they had to just sort of stand back and watch things happen, watch me get some help for it, but at the same time that help never seemed quick enough or fast enough or good enough, really. And I think and as a parent now, I understand that must have been, you know, terrible. It was a terrible time for them.
Talk us about some of the recovery. I mean, how was it for you? Did you struggle a lot? Because I know you've also written this book, Thin, you called it, and you're basically telling everyone that they need to know. I like what you've written. Let me just find the page. If I share a secret with you, do you promise to tell everyone? This is not a secret to be kept inside anymore. This is not a secret to be shrouded and embedded in hushes and quietness. This secret will not be one that forges itself into deep wrinkles and is held fast with a sharp intake of breath. This is a story to be told. It is a story to be shared and shared out loud, to be discussed and considered and passed on. So pass it on. So those, you obviously want as many people as possible to know about it, because it's something that's very easy to fall into, but also it's very difficult to recover from at times, isn't it?
Yeah.
Take
It's
us
a
through
very long journey to recover from it fully, because once you're inside of it, you become absolutely terrified of putting on weight, terrified of eating, terrified of the whole idea of engaging with a normal relationship with food, and you've got to overcome that bit by bit. And I did initially get some professional help, and then really ended up doing it a lot on my own, slowly, piece by piece, trying to first of all get my weight back up to a reasonable level, and then think about why I'd started to engage in those behaviours in the first place. And the thing that's most frustrating, and the reason I want to tell the story and the reason I wrote the book, is because there's so many myths and misconceptions about what this illness is. And I'll go and talk in schools and girls will say, well, isn't it just about people seeking attention or just wanting to look like a celebrity? And I say
it's a horrible thing to say when someone's obviously not well.
Yeah.
And they think it's just attention seeking, or it's all about vanity, because people really don't understand.
I mean, I can tell you that when I was very thin and frail and freezing the whole time and covering myself up in clothes, I was the most furthest removed from any kind of vanity that you can ever be. I felt disgusted with myself. I hated myself. I didn't think my body was attractive at that thin weight. Of course I didn't. But the whole thing was about, I was very, very worried about losing control of my life, and I was focusing all of that onto this relationship with food and my weight. And for me, it was like having a phobia. I said, when I was getting better, it was a bit like every single day having to sit in a bath full of spiders but be arachnophobic, or like every day having to stand on the tall edge of a skyscraper and look down with a fear of heights. That's, for me, how it was, trying to eat again and be normal again. And so yeah, it took a lot of time.
And you've got 2 little girls now. How do you speak to them? Because obviously you don't want for them to ever go through anything like this. So how do you make sure that they've got a healthy relationship with food?
I think all I can do, I mean, they're only young at the moment, but I'm very aware of these issues because we live in a world that's saturated with images of thinness and with a belief that if you're thin, you're good and you're worthy and you're better than other people. And so I've got to kind of counteract that by just, I think, being a strong role model myself. We always eat as a family together. I would never put myself down in front of them or criticise something about myself in front of them. And I would try not to have those thoughts. In fact, I would try and think positively in the hope that I can help that to kind of affect them and the way they see.
Grace, I'd love you to stay with us until after the break as well, because we are going to be joined by another guest who's going to be telling us more about eating disorders. So join us after this break. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, where we're speaking about eating disorders. And now we're joined by Emily Gilmour, who is the director and founder of the Recover Clinic. Good evening, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So tell me about the clinic and why you set it up in the first place.
We set up the Recover Clinic because we recognised that there was a gap in the treatment that was available to people suffering with eating disorders. The treatment options that were available to people were extremely limited, which I discovered myself working in inpatient care. And so we set up the Recover Clinic to treat those who weren't getting the treatment elsewhere.
And can you tell us about some of the most common eating disorders and things to look out for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a lot of people, the people that we have in having treatment at the clinic, and people that you would just perhaps walk past in the street, you wouldn't necessarily recognise actually that they're suffering with eating disorders. This disease really fuels itself on people being ashamed of the illness and keeping it hidden from those around them. So it's really difficult to look out for those signs. In some cases, when somebody's suffering with something like anorexia, it's really evident to the people around that person that they've got a problem because it's physically obvious. But for many of the people that we have at the clinic, that's really not the case. So it's being able to identify those kind of unwell behaviours that aren't as obvious to maybe everybody else.
I mean, a lot of the shows we have, like one underlying theme that I'm noticing when people come on with that I used to have problems, is that there's always this word, I was ashamed to admit that I had a problem, I was ashamed to ask for help. And, you know, this is something that if you don't ask for help, it could be so devastating. So it's really important not to be afraid, not to at least talk to someone, even if it's like a friend or something like that, just to at least get the ball rolling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of people go through problems. Sometimes, like I said, it's like, as I said before, sometimes a person thinks it's just me that's going through it and people are going to look at me and think I'm crazy, but it's not. So many people are going through it.
Absolutely. And I think when people come into our groups at the clinic, they meet for the first time other people who are going through absolutely similar things to themselves. And they hear for the first time that actually their experiences aren't so personal to them, that they can be really shared and understood by quite a few people. And that can be quite a relief to a lot of people suffering with this.
Okay. Well, we have actually opened the phone lines if you want to call and leave a message, 0207-686-6300. If you'd like to speak to someone, we can pass your questions on as well. And if you'd like to email as well, you can do so on chris@chrissybshow.tv. Let's check if we've got any emails. Audrey, do we have anything?
Yes, we have got one. Christine, a mom from London, she wrote, I'm really worried about my 16-year-old daughter who lately have been avoiding eating and she's lost a lot of weight, and when she talks to her, she just says she's fine, and her concern is that she's so young, she's only 16.
So obviously parents are worried, mum's worried. So if a child is saying, look, I'm fine, everything's okay, what can you do in that sense? And
I think my advice to parents would be not to give up and not to ignore a problem if you think it's there. You don't need to be a clinician to recognise there's a problem with your children, and if something's instinctively telling you that something's not right, I think you should trust that instinct. And I think a lot of parents don't do that because they're not sure how to proceed or how to talk to their children. I mean, that lady's obviously speaking to her daughter, which is amazing, about her concerns and acknowledging that there's an issue there, and that's really exactly the advice that I would be giving her. So from this point, she's doing absolutely the right thing. And somebody under the age of 18 is still that parent's responsibility. So that parent's got quite a bit of leverage in getting the GP involved.
Okay, that's good, at least talking.
Absolutely,
so that's
yeah.
And these things don't go away on their own, and I think because there's a lot of information saying that anorexia is a phase or a fad or some kind of copycat trend, that sort of got mixed up, and other eating disorders and other issues, to suggest that there's something that people just grow out of, when actually keeping that conversation open is really important, because generally if there is a problem, it's not just going to disappear overnight, unfortunately. So probably, it's worth addressing.
All right, let's take another email, Audrey, as well.
Well, there's another lady, Anne from Oxford. She says that her sister is obsessed about her weight, and she weighs herself at least twice a day. I think that was what Grace was doing, constantly weighing herself. And she says that even if she puts on half a pound, she's like really depressed, moody, and she's worried. The sister's worried that this could lead to an eating disorder.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like somebody who potentially is already struggling with an eating disorder, actually. I think an eating disorder is when feelings and emotions just become translated into feelings about weight and about food. And I think that when that's becoming the real focus of somebody's existence, that's a problem.
It's good to catch it now before.
Absolutely, before it
serious.
Before it spirals.
Although,
into
to be honest,
problem.
I used to weigh myself every day just to check. So I suppose in some cases it could be like a problem, but in other cases just maybe someone keeping an eye on their weight. But then if they get depressed,
on and how you feel. You know, I think if it's impacting on your relationships or the things that you would normally like to do, your emotions, your desires, your just general well-being, then for you it's a problem, isn't it? I think if it's something that you're doing but you're living a very normal life and you're happy in yourself, then that's something different. And I think eating disorders are mental health issues, and that's really worth just saying and reiterating.
That is an important point, actually, isn't it? Because people sometimes don't recognise it as a mental health issue, and I think that will help people understand more as well.
Absolutely. It's a really serious mental health issue. The deaths that result from eating disorders are greater than any other mental health problem.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a really, really serious illness.
Okay, let's take another email.
Well, we have one here that says that Helen from London, she says, I really want to lose a stone, and I've tried all sorts of diets and doesn't seem to get really far. And she says a friend suggested that she should take pills, diet pills or laxative, and says that it's safe, but she's worried if this could affect her like negatively, even though it's for a short period of time. She's going to test it out.
Oh dear, laxatives and
diet pills.
Doesn't sound too healthy, does it?
No, I don't think so. I think that it sounds like that lady's already got a voice there telling her that perhaps that isn't the right thing to do. And actually that sounds like quite a well voice that she needs to listen to, because her instinct with that's absolutely right. You know, laxatives aren't there as a diet control method. They're there for a medicinal reason, to be used under guidance of a doctor, certainly not for weight loss. And the problems that can result from laxative use are pretty devastating. I've seen some pretty horrific things from laxative abuse. It's not a route you want to go down.
Okay, well, you know the best way to lose some weight. There shouldn't be a hurry to lose it as well. And actually first find out if you are actually overweight, because maybe she's not. Maybe she's not at all, and that she thinks she needs to lose a stone. But I think the best thing as well to go to the doctor and actually get yourself weighed, get yourself checked out before you even think of going on a diet. I think because a stone is quite a substantial amount of weight if you're not that overweight in the first place. So tell us, how do you actually treat people then with eating disorders?
It depends on who's sat in front of us, Chrissy. So depending on the person that comes in will depend on the programme that we then put together for that person. But it will be a combination of physical rehabilitation, emotional healing, and some sort of mentoring as well, helping that person really look at the direction that their life's heading in and steering them back on track in a way that they feel really positive about. So we don't really have kind of one method. And some things work amazingly well for some people and less so for others. For some patients, we take a very practical approach, which focuses around the food, and for others we'll use more of an artistic method where they're talking about what inspires them creatively to try and aid healing. That could be through music, that could be through drama.
Does that sound familiar, Grace, as you're nodding away there?
Yeah, I think really part of my recovery was finding something else I was passionate about, and that was writing. And when I started to write, this story came out of me because I felt it was very important. And as soon as I was focusing on writing and focusing on other things in my life, I started to find that I was a happier person and I was less preoccupied with thoughts about food or weight or body image.
Was that something you were always good at and you kind of lost that along the way?
Yeah,
when you got
it was
ill?
always, absolutely. When I became anorexic, everything fell apart, and all of the kind of goals and dreams and aspirations that one should have when they're 18 really got obliterated. And I didn't really know what I was doing for a while. And it took me a long time to get the confidence back up to believe that actually I could do these things and that I was worthy enough and that I should try, and that I was a good enough person that deserved nice things to happen to them, and that my identity was more than thinness, because that's what anorexia taught me, was that Grace is a thin person and that is the person she is, when actually what I needed to do was find out what else I could do. So I absolutely encourage anybody who had a similar position to mine to try and find something similar like that.
Okay. And Emily, do you work a lot with mainly young people, is it, or all ages?
It's all ages. I think it's a bit of a myth actually that eating disorders primarily affect young people. We have people of all ages in the clinic.
Right.
I think anorexia is very evident in a young person because it strikes and it makes a situation very critical very quickly, whereas other eating disorders like binge eating disorder and bulimia, somebody can suffer with that for an enormously
Can you tell us a bit about that as well? Because that's obviously Chrissy, but I don't know much about bulimia, but does the person also lose a lot of weight, or doesn't?
They can do,
yeah.
or somebody with bulimia might maintain a normal weight or even be slightly overweight, depending on what their symptoms and also how their body might respond. So if a body recognises that any food being ingested is going to be vomited very quickly, it will work very hard to retain as many calories as it can. So somebody might be vomiting a lot of food, but actually the body's working in overdrive in preparation for that. So somebody with bulimia typically would be a normal weight or even slightly overweight. If somebody's what's called a purging anorexic, if they're vomiting and restricting their food, then you really see a dramatic weight loss with that.
And what can parents, friends do that can be most helpful? Because as we've heard, people that are going through this, sometimes they're very defensive and they don't want to talk about it, as you mentioned as well. So what's the best thing parents, friends can do to help a person? First of all, maybe recognise that they have a problem, and then also through the treatment process as well.
I think eating disorders really are fueled by denial. And when people around somebody suffering with an eating disorder also don't acknowledge that there's a problem, it can make it a lot harder for that person that's suffering with an eating disorder to really face up to what's going on. So I think one of the most difficult things, but also one of the best things for people to do, is to acknowledge that there's a problem. For somebody to say, I'm concerned about you, this is what I can see. Even if it doesn't mean that they can come up with the solution, even to acknowledge it is a massively positive thing to do for somebody suffering with an eating disorder. Makes it a lot easier for that person to begin to acknowledge that there's a problem.
Okay. And Grace, how do you feel about your body now today?
I feel like I suppose I'm a very different person to the person that had that eating disorder.
You look very confident, by the way, very bubbly as well.
Oh, well, I think I'm a mum of 2 young daughters, and I haven't really got that much time to be thinking about my body. I try and focus on other things, and I try and not live any kind of extreme wild lifestyle. I try to be very balanced and healthy in what I do, and hopefully that is a good role model for my children, and also when I go and talk about my experiences for other people as well. I think I'm kind of a normal woman who has insecurities and anxieties like everybody else, but probably I've learnt a lot, and actually it's made me a lot wiser about what really matters in life.
And if there's someone watching now that is really obsessed with their weight, what would you say to them?
Gosh, it's such a hard question. I mean, there's very many different stages you can be at. But all I know is that it's a battle worth fighting to get your life back, and that as good as you might feel from short-term benefits of losing weight that might make you feel better when you go to bed that evening, life is much richer and fuller and varied and more interesting beyond a kind of relationship with the scales like that.
Okay, and you, Emily?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Grace has said, but to any person struggling with this issue, I would say you don't need to limit your life like that you are more than that, even if you don't see that today, that somebody else will. And speaking to somebody else who can see you beyond that and beyond a weight, you are much more interesting than that, and there's much more about you that the world wants to see.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies. That was really inspiring. It's great that you've recovered. Thank you so much for sharing the advice as well.
Pleasure.
And all the details of our guest tonight will be up on the website chrissybshow.tv. So now we're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be joined by Lisa Marie, who's going to be who's going to be sharing her fashion tips with us, and also Flavia Leal with her makeup tips. So join us then. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show. But before we go to Lisa Marie with the fashion tips, let's go to Flavia Leal in the US, who's going to be giving us her makeup tip of the week.
Hi, welcome back to the Fashion Block at Chrissy B Show. Today's tip will be on how to fix your eyebrows with makeup. We're going to be using an eyebrow pencil. Be careful with black. Don't ever use black on your eyebrow because it won't look natural. Even if your hair is black, don't use black pencil. Use something brown, a dark, very dark brown. You can mix a little bit of black, but don't use black alone. So I brush my eyebrow up, and that will give me an overview and an idea of what I need to do, because sometimes the hair goes a little bit down, goes to the side and hides some spots, they're missing hair. So it's good to brush it up, and that will give us a better idea of what we need to do. So after I do that, I have to measure my eyebrow. I have to find where it has to start, where it has to end, and the curve of the eyebrow. So I will start from this point right here, from the inside, not the outside, because some noses are a little bit bigger than others. So if you follow this part right here and it ends right here, your eyebrow will start in the wrong place. So go from the inside and measure up. So your the beginning of your eye has to be, you have to make a straight line from this point, passing through this point right here, and here will be the beginning of your eyebrow. The end of your eyebrow should be, you make another line from here, passing through the end of your eye, and if the line is straight, here should be the end of your eyebrow, like that. This point right here, you use the same first point, which is right here. You make another line passing through the black small part of your eye. So if you do that, if you make a line right here, here's where the curve of your eyebrows should be. So start from here and draw a few hairs. It's, as I said, it's very important that you use something that was made for eyebrows, because eyebrow hair has a green pigment, and if you use something that wasn't made for eyebrows, it won't look natural. The color won't be right. So find the right color for you. Pick some of your hair color. If you have some red on your hair, some gold on your hair, use it on your eyebrows too, because it will look very good. So I cover the skin where I'm missing a few hairs right here. If your eyebrow is too big and you don't know how to tweeze them, how to take the hair out, don't. Just when you measure right here, you can use a little scissor and cut the hair right here. Don't pull the hair out, just cut it with a scissor. So if your eyebrow starts a little further than where it should start, you draw a few hairs right here. But be careful, so it has to look very natural. If you did too much, use a brush and just blend it in, and it will look very good. And I hope I have helped you. I hope you enjoyed it, and I see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Flavia, and I happen to love her accent. I think it's charming. Lisa Marie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So you've got some fashion tips for us today again?
Yes, so today we're talking about travel style, because obviously kids are going back to school soon, so thank goodness the travel prices actually returned to normal,
right,
where most people can actually just go and take a break.
Yeah.
And for some people, they're thinking, oh, what do I wear? Especially on like long haul flights, and
because you want to look good, don't you? You want to look good, but you want to be comfortable at the same time.
Yeah, because you want to arrive in your chosen destination feeling good and looking good.
Yeah.
So first of all, we've got a YouTube video of how the celebs do it.
Okay.
So look at this first. Now, obviously, for some of the looks that were chosen there, I don't actually recommend that you dress like that. Obviously, people like Nicki Minaj and Lady Gaga, they're very individual. It's not for everyone. Though for some people, like the Nicki Minaj one, you can take the example of the layering and choosing different layers. Yeah. But some of the outfits I've chosen to focus on, the first look is based on Jessica Alba, because I thought she looked quite great there, and was quite the epitome, I think, of for great travel fashion. So we can go to that slide. So there, we've based a look on her. So we've got this really nice crop blazer from New Look at £30. Bootleg trousers, bootleg being one of the most flattering style for everybody, universally flattering. That's £30 from Dorothy Perkins. We've got a great little trilby hat there, $14.99.
I would never ever consider wearing anything like that normally, but it looked really good as part of the outfit, because that for me is like, I'd wear that to go fishing and protect me from the sun.
The reason why I chose the straw one rather than looking for the Panama type version she has, because for some people you might actually want to wear it on the beach, so therefore you're doubling up. So you're looking good going through the airport terminal, but you can also save it from being crushed in your bag.
Start thinking this, Marie.
I try. Yeah. So the pink shirt there is $19.99 from H&M. We've got a lovely snood type scarf from Red Herring at Debenhams, and that's £15.
What's a snood?
Snood is that it's continuous, so it's like a big circle, and it means you can wrap it up as much as you want. Or so if you wanted to just wrap it once and leave it long, or you can double wrap it, and you could so. It's just a bit different from just a normal scarf. And then these cute wedges are £25 because they're in the sale.
They're normally very comfy as well, aren't they?
And they're from Miss KG, which is like a spin-off of Kurt Geiger shoes. So for £25, that is amazing. And a lovely little holdall there, £31.20 from Debenhams, because they've got a promotion going on there. So just a nice little cute little look, and it's still very comfortable, because wedges, simple, they're not too high, and obviously you need a big holdall so that you can take everything you need to take onto the plane with you as well. So look number 2 was based on the skinny jeans that we saw from Jennifer Lawrence. So coloured skinnies, I think they look fabulous. So these ones are only £11 from Primark. Wow. And they do them in so many different colours, so it's easy just to go out there and get whichever colour you like, because if you're not that brave and you've not really tried wearing coloured skinny, because it's not for everybody, they do them in like stone kind of colour, tan kind of colour, so you can kind of work your way in there. And £11, you can't really go wrong. This cowl neck top, and I actually have this in white, and it's really great. It's $7.99 from New Look. So if you do obviously go a little bit overboard on some little food, it hangs really nicely at the front. Like those maxi
dresses we were talking about last week or the week before, wasn't it?
Yeah. So you can go a bit overboard and you're fine with that. Speak, as I said before, about Nicki Minaj with the layers. So you've got this cute cardi. It's $24.99 from H&M. £25 ballet flats just there at the bottom, and a scarf, £20 from Oasis. So this is a lot easier than if you're obviously going on the plane. Once you get up there, the air conditioning, it just goes really crazy. So you go from being on the ground and being like hot and sticky because of how many people are around you, you get up there and you're absolutely freezing.
It's true,
so this way, layering up is obviously the best way for you to keep warm, and then you can get rid of the layers as and when you want to. Cool. So our next look, I thought I'd add a little bit of colour here. So we've got this gorgeous orange maxi, and it's in the sale. It's only £10 at New Look. Exactly, it's gone down from $16.99 to £10, and they did
$16.99 was a bargain anyway, wasn't it?
They did it in like green, in like a tan stone colour.
So you don't have to spend a lot of money to look good.
You really don't. It's just about mixing it up. This jacket is £40 from Wallace, and it's really nice blazer, so you can take it, not just dressing it down like this, but obviously dress going to work, you know, lots of different ways to wear it with jeans, lots of different ways. These beautiful sunglasses, they are designer, but from TK Maxx, so designer glasses, but not the designer price tag, so only $16.99. And they're Cerruti glasses, so they're fabulous, like a Ray-Ban type shape. The bag, the leopard print, always have a bit of animal. £31.20.
Can't get away from the leopard print, can we?
No, it goes with everything. £31.20 from Debenhams, and the gold shoe there is £20 from June.
Okay, now you would
they're also in
definitely
the sale.
freeze on a plane with those shoes, so you should take your travelling socks too to change
But
into.
but if you're on a long haul flight, usually as well, that's what they give you to kind of to keep yourself warm and obviously to keep circulation going. So the key is obviously with layers. Most of the time, for me, I always take a scarf. So it's like you should always have kind of like a top 5 things that you always take with you in situations like you're going on a plane, so you can layer up. So like I said, things like comfy cardi that you can take on, take off.
Yeah.
And obviously because people don't think about when we're coming back. So we think about when we're going there and how we want to look.
The
and
rain when we come back.
Yeah, I remember when I 2 years ago I went to Barbados. So landed there, gorgeous weather. Landed back here, torrential rain. So luckily I had my I had like my jacket and that, and I'd remembered that. So always think about coming home as well. So layer it up, get a nice scarf, a nice thick one, and a nice long one, so you can wrap it around yourself as well with the blankets and stuff that they provide. So
okay. And have you packed already, young lady?
Do you know what? I really
Because Lisa Marie here is going to St Lucia. When Tuesday? Is it Tuesday or the following Tuesday?
It's next Tuesday, and I'm so excited.
And I'm so jealous.
I really don't bother. I pack the night before.
How can you do that? I remember when I was a child packing for Cyprus, I used to like pack maybe about 2 months in advance and buy little things and put it in and then unpack and put it back again and unpack and just...
I do the buying the little things. So I think, oh yeah, I'll get those shoes. I'm like, oh yeah, because they're going to look great. And I think of all the different outfit combos in my head so that I can try to avoid putting in too many shoes, because I love.
Maybe you can get some inspiration for stuff from St Lucia as well. Some nice fashion there.
Yes, you
Take
never
some
know.
pictures and
Bring
show
it
us.
back. Oh yeah. Well, you see from my tan as well.
All right, well, we have run out of time, unfortunately, but thank you so much for those tips for us.
All right.
And what day is it today?
Friday.
It's Friday. Why I don't know why it doesn't feel like a Friday every Friday. I don't know. Anyway, so we are going to go now, but please do have a wonderful weekend, and the Chrissy B Show will be on your screens once again on Monday. So join us then.
He squeezed his